Okay, it's time to get real with you. So I love my job as a developmental editor, but these overused phrases, every time I read them, I just have to shake my head. Hi, I'm Leslie, and today I'm breaking down the top 10 worst worn out words and phrases I see constantly when editing fiction, and what you can use instead to make your writing feel fresh and original. Let's kick things off with a classic. She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. This line has become the poster child for overused internal reactions in fiction. It shows up everywhere: YA, thrillers, fantasy, romance, you name it. And while it used to be more effective, now it's more likely to pull readers out of the moment because it's so familiar. So what's the real problem with this line? Number one, it's vague. What kind of breath? Why didn't she know she was holding it? It's become a shorthand for tension release, but without actually showing us the tension. It tells instead of shows. We're not feeling what the character felt leading up to that breath. So what you can try instead is show the buildup before the breath. Was she clenching her jaw? Were her shoulders tight? Did she have an ache in her chest? Replace the cliche with a specific physical cue. So she exhaled slowly, her shoulders finally dropping. Or air rushed from her lungs like she'd been underwater. Specificity creates immersion and makes your readers feel the release rather than just being told about it. Okay, next up is she found herself. This one sneaks in everywhere. She found herself crying. He found himself walking to her door. It's meant to signal a moment of surprise or self-discovery, but it's become such familiar filler that it dulls the impact, and it really doesn't make sense a lot of the times that writers use it. It adds unnecessary distance between the reader and the character. It often replaces a more direct, vivid description of the character's action or emotion, and it can sound really passive, like the character is just drifting through the scene rather than making choices. So what you can use instead is cut to the core of what's really happening. Tears slid down her cheeks before she could stop them. He was already halfway to her door before he realized it. She blinked, unsure, when the laughter had turned to sobbing. See the difference? These versions are tighter, more immersive, and they bring the reader closer to the character's emotional state without relying on that she found herself doing a thing. Okay, I'm really passionate about the next one, and I see it all the time. Number 3 is a whirlwind of emotions, or a mix of emotions. Writers use this when a character's feelings are complex, which is totally valid, but the phrase itself is so vague that it ends up saying essentially nothing. So here's what's going wrong. It tells us there are emotions, but not what they are. It avoids specificity, which means readers can't connect with the moment. It often used in moments of high tension or climax, exactly when you want vivid emotional detail. So what you can do instead is actually name the emotions and show how they collide with one another. So for example, you could say something like gratitude tangled with guilt, making her chest ache. He was furious, but underneath that, a sharp sting of betrayal pulsed. Relief hit first, then confusion, then a strange, heavy sadness she couldn't name. When you break it down, you not only make the moment clearer, you make it more relatable. Readers don't just understand the character, they feel them in that moment. Instead of just saying and chalking it up to, oh, there's a bunch of emotions, but I don't really feel like explaining them. Phrase number 4. Time slowed, or the world stopped, or everything went still. These phrases usually show up in big dramatic moments. Someone's about to get kissed, shot, or shocked into silence. And while they're meant to heighten the emotion, they've been used so often that they start to feel like filler. So here's why they don't land like they used to. They rely on a metaphor instead of showing us the actual character sensory experience, and they're often too generic to evoke a strong feeling. Because they're so common, they can feel lazy even if the rest of your writing is strong. So what to write instead here is zoom in on the moment with a concrete sensory detail. The background noise disappeared, just her pulse in her ears and the thud of her heartbeat. Everything else blurred, only his expression was sharp, too sharp. For a second, she forgot to breathe, her world narrowed to a single look. Alright, number 5, just and really. Yep, those sneaky little crutch words. They don't seem like much, right? But when you start editing, you realize they're everywhere. And they often don't add anything. So why they're a problem, they dilute your sentences. So for example, she was just so tired. isn't as strong as she was exhausted. They can make confident prose sound uncertain or passive. They tend to pile up without you even noticing, especially in dialogue and internal thought. So what you can do instead is, most of the time you can cut them completely. I just wanted to help can turn into I wanted to help. When you need emphasis, use stronger words instead of really. So instead of really cold, it's freezing. Really scared, terrified. So pro tip, run a search in your manuscript for just and really, and you'll probably be surprised how many times they pop up. Then start cutting or replacing for an instant polish. By the way, if you want to catch more sneaky little crutch words like just and really, I've got you covered. I put together a free crutch words checklist you can use as a reference when editing. Just run a search in your writing software and start trimming the fluff. It's a super quick win that makes a big difference, so check it out in the description. Number 6 is everything was a blur, or the rest of the day went by in a blur. Writers often use this when they want to skip ahead or show time passing without diving into the details. And hey, that's totally fine sometimes because we don't need every single detail. But when it's overused or used to avoid writing the scene, it starts to feel a little bit lazy. So the problem is it flattens the potential meaningful moments into nothingness. It tells instead of showing what the character is thinking, doing, or feeling, and it can make your pacing feel rushed or uneven if every time they get to work you just say it went by in a blur. So what to do instead is, if the day was uneventful, you can still use tone or detail to show that without defaulting to a blur. Examples would be the hours passed in a haze of polite conversation and too many refillable bread baskets. She floated through the day, nodding when expected, not really hearing a word. He barely remembered the drive home, just the weight in his chest and the dread of what waited for him. So these examples give us a little more. They give texture. They show that what the character noticed or didn't without dumping all the details. And that's much more satisfying than just saying the rest of the day blurred. Next up, we have then, especially in action sequences. Then might seem harmless. It's just a little transition word, right? But when it's overused, especially in fast-paced scenes, it can seriously mess with the rhythm. Here's what happens when then shows up too often. It slows down the pacing in scenes that are supposed to be fast. It creates a list-like effect. She turned, then she ran, then she tripped. It makes your prose feel more like stage directions than actual storytelling. So something you can do instead is drop it or replace it with a stronger, more varied structure. Examples would be, she turned and bolted, feet pounding the pavement. A sharp sound cracked behind her. She ran. She tripped and hit the ground hard, the air punching out of her lungs. In action, readers naturally follow cause and effect. You don't need then to hold their hand. Let the momentum do the work for you. Let's tackle another classic. A chill ran down her spine. This one has become the default setting for spooked, but not too spooked. You'll find it everywhere from horror to romance to mystery, but because it's common, it's lost its impact. Here's why it usually falls flat. It's vague. What kind of chill? From fear, cold air, a ghostly vibe? It also becomes a cliche. Readers skim right past it without feeling anything. It doesn't deepen the moment, it just kind of labels the reaction. So instead, you can level it up by getting specific and tie the physical reaction to the why behind it. Goosebumps prickled across her arms, even though the room was warm. Something unseen brushed the back of her neck, light as breath. Her stomach dropped and a cold knot tightened at the base of her spine. Each of these does what a chill ran down her spine is trying to do, but with a fresh, vivid language that makes the reader feel it. Number 9 is another big one. She couldn't believe her eyes. This phrase is usually trying to show shock, awe, or disbelief, but it's so overused that it doesn't really show anything at all anymore. The problem is it tells us that the character is surprised, but not why or how. It's generic and doesn't reflect the character's unique voice or reaction, and it often misses the chance to heighten the moment with detail or emotion. So what to write instead? Show us what makes the moment unbelievable through the character's perspective and physical response. She blinked once, then again, but the scene didn't change. Her brain struggled to make sense of what she was seeing. It didn't feel real, couldn't be. But there it was. These still express disbelief, but they do it in a way that pulls us deeper into the moment rather than just summarizing it. Now let's bring it home with the last one. He couldn't help but. or she couldn't help but. This phrase usually pops up when a character is reacting to something emotionally or impulsively. And while it can sound natural, it's often overused and comes with a hidden downside. Here's why it's a problem. It adds extra words without adding impact. She couldn't help but smiled can just be she smiled. It weakens the sentence by making the action feel passive or automatic. And maybe most importantly, it takes away a bit of the character's agency. It tells us they're reacting without awareness rather than showing us how they chose to respond. Over time, this can make characters feel like they're drifting through scenes rather than engaging with them. So what can you do instead? Cut the phrase and go straight to the action. She smiled, even though she didn't want to. Show the internal conflict or realization, like he laughed before he could stop himself, shocked by the sound of it. Or lean into the sensory detail to show an unintentional reaction with more depth. Tears welled before she could stop them, but she blinked them away fast. These options keep the spontaneity, but give your character a little more awareness, and that makes them feel more real and grounded on the page. So there you have it, 10 of the most tired, overused phrases that sneak into fiction all the time, and how to replace them with writing that's vivid, specific, and full of character voice. Don't forget to grab your crutch words checklist, it's linked in the description, and will make your self-edits so much easier. Just search your manuscript and start cutting the clutter. And if you want to dive deeper into crutch words and how they dull your prose, check out this video right here. I break down how to spot them, fix them, and tighten up your writing without losing your voice. Thank you for watching and happy writing.